Hey everybody, Jacob here from the Formula Drift podcast. We have an awesome deal for you. So if you head over to shopfd.com and use coupon code podcast23, you're going to save 20% on any merch. So anything you can find on that website, use podcast23 at shopfd.com. Save yourself 20%. Hats, shirts, lanyards, whatever. Just use the code. Save yourself some money. So why not? You know, don't stop listening. Wait till the show's done. But then head over, shopfd.com. Use podcast 23. We'll see you guys out there. All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Outerzone, the official podcast of Formula Drift. My name is Jacob Gettins, and today we have Mr. Robert Thorne on. What's going on, dude?
What's up? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Finally on the Outerzone podcast, where I learn everything about FD that I don't know.
Yeah, we were chatting about that like kind of before the show started. I mean, that's cool, man. I mean, you're obviously super new to drifting. Like what, 3 years basically?
Yeah. This was my third year of competition.
Yeah. I mean, kicking it off with what
and
I believe is
even
like
just
an NA
following
Miata.
drifting. Yeah. Well, okay. So I had like the introductory year, I'm going to go out to an event and see if it's fun.
Yeah.
So I guess that was, so 4 years, right? So the first year of like bringing out the NA Miata, what was that? So that was 2020.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'm going to take my road race car and put a handbrake in it and go have some more fun. And then somehow we got here. So 3 years, 3 years of competition. I was telling my spotter, Guillermo, at Long Beach this year. And he is like, he's giving me crap. I'm like, dude, give me a break, man. I'm like, this is literally my 9th comp. Like, I was like, this is my 9th comp ever. All right. Like, give me a break. I've only done this a couple times.
Yeah. It's wild.
I'm still winging it here, dude. Like, give me a break.
You've taken to it well. I mean, I think it goes without saying. I think honestly, like, as you said, most people, you learn about FD through the podcast, which is, phenomenal. I don't think most people truly understand your racing pedigree. And I didn't either. As somebody who's like well-read into FD drivers, like while researching this, I was like, damn, this is like a big list.
Okay, so you actually looked it up.
Oh yeah. No.
Yeah.
I got the whole thing here. I mean, if you want to walk through like every year how you did, I will say you are kind of the ultimate bridesmaid, but never the bride. You have so many seconds and thirds.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I've progressed through the road racing sport, like just below the radar forever. Like since I was like 8.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you did well enough to do Formula BMW. So like that's an invite thing, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yep.
So obviously you got the attention of somebody.
Yeah. And go-karting, of course, went through all the like national ranks and stuff. Up till I was 14 when I went and did the BMW shootout in Spain. And then I won that. Well, there was 5 spots available for like the scholarship to run Formula BMW in the States. So I was one of the winners of that. And then ran on the BMW junior team for the following season, and then funded myself another season in Formula BMW. That was a cool deal. Like the second year, I was teammates with Alexander Rossi.
Yeah.
And literally, I think I finished 6th in the championship, and all 5 above me have driven an F1 car at some point.
Really?
Yeah. And 4 of them are like currently in IndyCar. So it was a pretty stacked field. And here I am, right, in a junior series. It'd be like running Pro-Am, right? And like getting your ass kicked. And then being like, well, I'm just not good enough. Like, I suck.
But
then like years later, you watch the 5 people that beat you, like just continue beating everyone until they're at the top level in the sport. And you're like, okay, I probably wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Well, not too bad.
There's definitely guys sitting at home right now being like, yeah, I'm not drifting anymore. But the guys that beat me were, Chris Forsberg, Von Gittin Jr.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You got to be careful what crowd you're up against.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's cool though that like you were at that caliber. I mean, hindsight's 2020. I'm sure at the time you're just like, what the hell? Like, I just need to get better. Like, I need to get better.
16 years old. So I was like, didn't know what I was doing then.
I mean, you knew something. You knew, top 6 for sure.
Yeah. Knew I wanted to keep doing it.
Is open wheel like that much different than like a closed wheel setup? Because I mean, you've done a pretty good gambit of closed wheel stuff.
Yeah. And open wheel was a long time ago. But it's really different the way the car feels. And part of it is you get all your feedback through your body in a car, right? In an open wheel car, you're like laying down.
Yeah.
So like, it'd be like driving your street car with the seat all the way reclined and then a bunch of pillows propped up against your head. And then feeling like how the car moves under you in a laying down position. So like it really feels different. It's super odd.
Can you feel
the car
like,
is very pointy.
Can you feel like slip angle better because of that? Because like it feels more because like your
I feel like it was very numb to it for some. I remember being very numb to it. It could have been because I was young.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when you're young, you like make mistakes, you spin cars out all the time and stuff. Then you see like there's dudes like you just never see backwards. That, and the more experienced they are. You take like Alonso in F1, you know, no matter how bad the car is, he's somehow always like hustling it. So it could have just been that I was young and numb to it. I remember I crashed on the oval, doing an oval test in Indy Lights. And I remember like the car was backward before I even felt anything. Like I was like, we're good. Like we're 100% good. And we were averaging over 200. Just like, I mean, IndyCar does that today pretty easily. But I remember like, you turn in at like 205 and watch like the gauge creep down to like 197. I was right in the middle of the corner. And then it was just 90 degrees sideways before I felt anything. And then it was immediately in the wall, of course.
Yeah.
Because that's,
that was on a test day you did that.
Yeah, right. So, of course, you look like an idiot. You're like, oh, you're not even supposed to be pushing it. But it was a track where you just run it flat out.
Yeah.
So it's like you either have your foot to the floor the whole lap or you don't, and you're nowhere. So, of course, you just run it flat out, and all of a sudden the car's in the wall. I'm like, man, like there's no feeling. Obviously, like drift cars are the opposite. We have all the feel in the world. The tires are kind of big and squishy. You have huge amounts of slip angle. It's not like when the car's 30 degrees sideways, all the grip's gone. You just spin no matter what you do.
Right.
So it's super different. The GT cars, of course, everyone on here is, at least a lot of the people on here have probably driven bigger cars, and the GT cars feel like bigger cars with so much downforce that you can't mess it up. GT cars, it's like the opposite of a formula car where, you're like glued to the road, which is super nice. When super nice, they've got like the world's best traction control, the world's best ABS, the world's best power steering, and then you've got 10 settings for each of those on the steering wheel until the car's so good. I know, like I used to take people for like media rides. Of course, you take a person for a media ride in an FD car and it's like, they get out, they're excited. They're like, holy crap, like couldn't believe it could do that. The wind was in my face. We were going sideways. The wall was right there. I thought we were going to hit people. I'd take people on media rides in a GT3 car, like the, McLaren MP412C GT3 car. And they would get out and be like, why didn't you push it? I'm like, that was 2/10 off my qualifying lap. Like,
and that was because of the extra weight in the car.
When we do the media laps, there's no point in putting the power limiting on you have for like, BOP.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, open it up. So we, turn them all the way up. We take the ballast out. You put the passenger seat in, right? And we go out and we're running like qualifying times. And they're like, I thought you were going to push it harder, because the car's just not moving around. The car's just, it's just planted and like you're fighting little bits of understeer when you're just at the limit and you're just, flowing speed. And they get out and they're like, thought it'd be fast.
Is that why we see like so many like quote unquote like rich guys running in that class? Because like it's not that like it's easy. I don't want to take anything away from being able to do that, but like
it's easy to drive 2 seconds a lap slower. So you take like the factory, world's best, you get your like, Alvaro and your Kevin Estras of the world. And, they'll run a 133, and then you put the gentleman driver in who's been, paying his way and doing it for a year and a half, and he'll run like a 135.
Okay.
Because it's not that hard to get close.
Right.
It's really hard to get that last little bit.
Because is it at that point you're almost fighting the computer of it, where you're like, no, like everything is trying to slow me or keep me correct, and like I actually need to step this out a bit more to pick this up.
You don't fight the computer too much, and you can adjust it.
Right.
It's weird. You're fighting. You're fighting understeer and like. It's almost like tire prep. Like the tires, as soon as you start to like overwork them or overslip them, then like the magic sweet spot starts to roll off. And then maybe you'll put a little too much heat into the front tires, and that'll develop a little understeer. And then you'll have to slow down a little bit because of that understeer. And you end up in this like little cascade of you making the car get slower lap after lap.
Oh, okay.
And you can really feel it when you get in the car right after a really good driver. And you'll get in and the car will feel like magic, because like the tires and everything are just at the perfect temperature, and the tire prep's right. They have just the right wear in them.
Yeah. And
it's maintaining all of that. It really does take like all the little things to get it right. And it's not always lined. A lot of times you'll see the best drivers and they'll be missing an apex by a few feet, but it's the momentum that they carry, the way they trail brake and roll off the brakes, and they have the brake bias just right. It's the reason they do thousands of laps and why they're the best.
Well, it's so I mean I've never really been into road racing. I've became, more or less an F1 fanboy with, everything developed in Netflix. I watched a bunch of F1 as a kid because like my grandfather was like, you're going to sit here and not speak for the next 2 hours, and we're going to watch F1 together, and that'll be our bonding time.
Nice.
Yeah. But being around grid life for the last 10 years and like kind of catching that bug, and guys just talking about like the perfect lap. They're like, it was it. I felt it. Like I got on track and like I knew in that moment. I think like Dewey, him and I like had a drink one night and we were like chatting about it, and he talked about it. He's like, yeah, he goes, it was today. He goes, I rolled it off the trailer. I felt good. I brought the tires in, and then that was it. I did my lap. I packed it away. And he goes, and if I do well, I won't have to put it back out again.
Right. It's like you got everything out of it.
Yeah. Like
and
Will was like the king of that. He used to just like one lap and that was it. And you're like, cool, I'm done for the day. Done for the weekend.
Okay. Like, tires, that was as good as it was going to get. It was cold. The tire prep came in just right. The temperatures were set. We ran the car on maximum attack.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just don't leave it on the table.
Do you to like make sure we're not losing the audience completely here? Do you feel like this is a drifting podcast?
We're talking about drifting. So going sideways.
No, but do you feel like there's a similar substitute that like people could feel like if, even if it's just the average drifter, like is there something that's similar to that?
Yeah, and I feel like you still have like the perfect run, and it might be your first practice run off the trailer, or it might be the last comp battle that you did, where you have the perfect, of course I'm talking about lead runs, right?
Yeah.
Chase runs are always kind of messy, but yeah, I mean, you definitely like want to have that perfect. So today, right, I had an event today, out drifting my wife's Mustang, great little SN95, runs great out there with Casey Cole and Daniel Stuckey and
nice
playing around a little bit here at Full Lock. And my third run today, that was the one. It was like perfect. Hit just all the outers just right, carried the momentum, had the transition, hit the lock stops both through both transitions, and carried it. And it was like, that was it. And after that, I parked the car.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, Casey, your turn. You go play for a little while.
I tell people,
so you can still get that for sure. And the more you do it, the more like your setup, the tire prep, the track you're going to. Yeah. It does. That's the part that's taking me a little longer. I think with pro is the setup and the track conditions and getting that right in the right moments. Because it changes.
It does. And I mean, our practice schedules and qualifying schedules are not always conducive to what and a lot of that's just like the logistics of running an event. In a perfect world, you would practice all day at the window you'd be qualifying in, and then you would do that the same general time frame that you'd be competing in. But also, that's kind of what makes it cool is the fact that like not only do you have to be a great driver, the mechanics need to know what they're doing, and like the general knowledge of setting a car up, setting tire pressures correctly, alignment correctly. Like it's that the team wins it. Like it's not just the driver. Like you guys have a lot to do with it, but like
driving's kind of the easy part.
Right.
Especially if the car is right.
Yeah.
Like if the car's off, then driving can be hard. But I think that's why drifting's translated so well for me. Probably because the driving's tough, but like having the whole team dynamic, car prep, and trying to deal with the conditions and what the car needs, we're pretty good at that. And I have been doing it for long enough to feel like I have a good idea when it is right.
Yeah.
And assigning things. Of course, I'm working with Andy Smedgard, right? That's why it says ASM on the side of the car, Andy Smedgard Motorsports. And, big grid life guy, big friend of mine. And, early on we were competitors until we realized how just kind of eye to eye we see cars and builds and setups and everything. And that's why I was like, you have to be on my team, because in FD, it's like all about that. It's all about the car, all about the prep. And we're talking about like, it's tire prep like drag racing, I feel like. Where we're like, okay, it's right, the car's right, the tire pressure, the temperature, what's the humidity, how much rubber does it look like there's out there? Yeah. What are the times of the other guys? How, like in drag racing, of course, you're like, looking at everyone else's launches, looking at their 60 foots. What are they able to put down? And then you like got to judge your setup and you get one shot at it.
Yeah.
Right. You roll up to the line and like you got it or you didn't. And if you like at Irwindale during my last battle, I didn't get it. And I missed it, by a mile against Kristaps. And I just burned the tires off the car in my run. It was set up like a weird combination of like too tight, but also not fast enough.
Yeah.
And like, I know now what I would have done different with the conditions, but I burned my tires off trying to keep up with them and courted them going into the last outer zone. He drove away from me. And even before that happened, he probably had the win because I just wasn't keeping up. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes you get it wrong. And like, once it rolls up, you got to live with what you got.
Yeah. There's really there's really almost no racing like that. Could you imagine, similar, in a GT car where it's like, cool, you're going to take 4 corners. Like it's going to be a standing start and you have 4 corners, and whatever the race is after the first 4 corners, that's it. It's over. Like that's
exactly.
That's what we're doing. Right. Just over and over again.
there's one sport, right, that's just like this.
Yeah.
And I happen to be pretty good at it. And it's SCCA Autocross.
Right.
And people have asked me, they're like, how much does road racing translate to drifting? And I pretty much usually tell them not at all.
Yeah.
But autocross translates like 100%. Because that is the sport where you sit there in the pits and like you go to nationals, right? And you have 3 competition runs. So you have to walk, study the course, right? So that's the whole learning it really quickly, just like we have in FD. Then you don't see it till the next day. And then you have just 3 competition runs. And they're generally spaced out almost 30 minutes apart. So you've got to have your setup dialed. You've got to be running the course through your head. You've got to have everything right. And of course, the whole course is made out of cones.
Yeah.
And if you hit a cone, that's plus 2 seconds and your day's over.
It's over. Yeah.
Your whole championship is over. And then to make that harder, it's then those 3 runs. And then the second day, they build a whole new course. And you have to do it again on another course. Mm-hmm. And they take the 2 fastest times only, and that's the winner. And that prepares you pretty well because it's all the mental game of being ready to attack, on the first run and the second run, the third run.
I feel like that's the motorsport that gets shit on the most, and it really shouldn't.
Yeah,
it does.
Dude, have you ever tried to describe why autocross is cool? Be like,
it's
right.
Yeah.
It's sick. So we go to a parking lot, sometimes an airfield. All right. These cars are awesome. They're awesome. They're like Miatas.
Yeah.
And like Miatas.
S2000s. Yeah.
Maybe an S2000 or two. And then they build this course out of cones. And you never go over 60 miles an hour, but it's really cool.
Some are lying down. That means you go this way.
Some of them are like lying down.
Yeah.
And then you're there for like 4 days and you get 3 runs.
Yeah.
So it's really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not fast, but like, yeah. But same thing. Like it's tire prep, like understanding what that tire needs to be. The classes are very limiting and very like cut and dry. You know,
car rules are brutal to go through and maintain.
Brutal. Yeah, it's nuts. And then the only difference is it's just not a judge sport. Could you imagine if it was?
Oh my gosh.
I don't know, man.
If you had to do your 3 runs and there was no stopwatch and then they just judged which one looked
looked fastest.
Oh my God. That sounds like a new sport. Worst sport ever.
Oh man.
Right, so that's what drifting is then, basically.
Yeah.
But I have argued that we have an autocross where we send 2 cars at once.
Yeah, well, I mean,
why not? We do it in drifting. It's fun.
Gymkhana, they usually do 2 at once, right? Yeah, Gymkhana, they usually mirror them and then come around. So, and that's still time. Like that's kind of the happy medium between the 2.
Yeah, yeah.
You do that, and you just do like extra bonus, or you get like a 10th taken off for style or something. Yeah. Yeah. Like, if you like reach out and pull a stick out of a barrel, you like lose a 10th or something.
Yeah. So that's like Andy's events. So Andy Smedgard, they host events up in Wisconsin and it's timed and judged.
Right.
And you get extra points for the features that you hit. So they've got like barrels and things sticking off the fence that you've got to scrape and zones you've got to hit. And then you get style points. And then it's timed. So you'll have the autocrossers that just rip the course and, they'll be 10 seconds ahead of the fastest drift car. Yeah. And then the drift cars, going for every bonus point, and maybe there's 10 to 12 bonus points available throughout the run.
That could shave 10 seconds off.
Yeah. And I did that a couple of times. It's been super fun.
That's interesting. I've never heard of that. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Huh.
Yeah.
I like that.
Drift grip.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Drift versus grip. So you guys, I think the drift car has won like once or twice. Usually the grip car is still winning. Yeah. But,
I'll take it. It's something different. If anything, like just to cross-pollinate these worlds. And I mean, like you're definitely up there in the big, like the top guys that are doing that, which is cool. I know like just having somebody be a representative from that world to come over and really show that off. I know we've had guys previously that have done it, but like you're kind of within this, I call it like the third wave, or I mean, you're almost like 4th wave, honestly.
I'm old enough to be 3rd wave.
Hey, we're the same age, man. So
we're almost old.
Yeah, I felt old today. I went and played hockey for the first time this season, and I was like in the dressing room. So I was like, it's all like older guys, but like I'm the one putting the knee brace on. Like, I was like, oh, yeah.
Woke up with a stiff neck after swapping a CRV engine over like a day. And,
dude, 30? It's just,
oh man,
it's like overnight.
Yeah, it's I can't just bend over for 14 hours.
I can't just be hunched over an engine bay for an entire night and live off like cheap beer and pizza and feel okay the next day.
Right.
Like I've been doing that for 10 years.
Sometimes.
Yeah. So I have to ask, what's it like going from the streets of Long Beach in 2009 in a McLaren to then doing it in 2023 in a BMW? Like, what? That's a trip, dude.
Yeah. I was like, oh man, the last time I was here, I was racing these corners. It's super interesting. It's been a long road, because I've kind of gone up through the ranks of sports car racing.
Right.
And then, come back down, of course you go through phases of gaining and losing, rides and sponsors and all that stuff. Never thought, I mean, I viewed, F1, as like a fan. I watched it, of course. I watched Super Drift before I even knew what it was called, that year when I was racing. So, and then now to be there, of course, my biggest friend groups are all still road racers. So they're like still there doing all the road race stuff. And they're like, what are you doing? Like, they're like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then also like, how are you now there doing that? Like, and I'm just like, I'm still like just like fangirling around out there, as like, I spent my first half of this year just being like a fangirl every time I had like drove somewhere, doing my first lap on the streets of Long Beach. I've got like all the pictures and videos from it. I'm like, that's me, And then I've got like a whole like little thing of the first time I did a tandem with Chelsea, and like I said, I spent the whole year just being a fangirl, at least for the first half, before I was like, okay,
I should probably concentrate on winning. And then it was St. Louis, and you beat James Dean, and then you're like, oh, cool. If I try, I can do well.
Okay, cool. I can do this now. Yeah. It took a bit. It took a bit of trying for sure. Like, I didn't even know what I needed to work on at the beginning of the year.
Right.
Like we knew we just needed, okay, let's bring a car that we know works and runs. And then we're just going to have to see. Like, I didn't know what we would need or what it would be like on the bigger tires or the competition or just really what it would take. And was the car fast enough, which it was nowhere near at the beginning of the season. Setup wise, right?
Yeah.
Messing with shocks messing with damper settings on a car that's road racing versus messing with damper settings on a car that's going sideways is very different, apparently.
Okay.
It's just like what you get out of the clicks. You want to know like what's going to happen when I remove front rebound.
Right.
And I can tell you what's going to happen if I'm like autocrossing it.
Yeah.
But I had no idea what I needed in the drift car. I think the first year I messed with them, and I'm like, I don't even notice anything. And then we had enough grip this year to where we, started playing with it. And then we're like, oh, this is a big tool. We need to get dialed. And then we scheduled like a whole 2 test days. What was that? I think it was before St. Louis. That's why we showed up to St. Louis, like with our shit together, actually. It's because I was like, I need to go testing so bad. So we just tested damper. I think I went through like 4 or 5 different spring changes on the front and the back of the car. Shock sweeps, all through the shock sweeps. Just trying to get a handle on it. And then like a wheel offset.
Okay.
Super, super important. Huge tuning tool for what you can get out of the car. Because weight jacking, right? So of course, the further out they are when you turn, the more weight jacking you get.
Yeah.
So that was huge. But then, of course, you go too far and you start hitting stuff, or you don't have enough rigidity in your strut assembly or in steering, to actually support it. And all of a sudden it starts wobbling. So trying to like get ourselves on the ragged edge of what the suspension could handle and how much weight jacking we could get out of the vehicle to make it, of course, we're shooting for like the RTR look. You want to be just pinned 90 degrees sideways and, one front tire in the air, right? And like the whole car looking impossible. Like, how do we get that? And you got to start pushing things for sure. And we had the car at the limit going into St. Louis. And, our lowest pressure, everything the front could handle, maxed on, as much front grip as we could develop and as much grip to the point where we were pushing the front tires and understeering. And that was the first weekend where I drove the car with it actually being fast and actually at the limit. And that was, of course, where we won our first battle. So started to figure out the secret sauce a little bit.
It's got to be like both exhilarating and scary too. Because like, it's almost like unlocking like a new level. It's like a Pokemon evolving or something.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, you had this inside you the whole time and I just haven't been using it.
Right. Yeah. I was like, man, I wonder if, what would my pro spec season be like if I knew this? Like, I could have actually figured some stuff out.
Ben Hobson. That's like.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
so Ben took everything he learned and then got in a car and with a team and with everything actually set up and, changes that all moved the way he wanted and just absolutely killed it. Yeah. I mean, it was like every event. I mean, not to knock on the other drivers, but it seemed from the outside like no contest.
He seemed very untouchable. He definitely seemed very untouchable. Yeah. And I mean, I want to give credit where credit's due with the chassis and stuff like that too. But also if you go back and watch how he's always driven, it's always been there, but there's always these weird situations that came up. I did a pretty good deep dive when I saw how he was doing. And I'm going back and watching old events. I'm like, oh, that's a weird call or it's a weird incident or the car broke in a weird way. And it was always there. But
him and I were 1 and 2 last year going into St. Louis. And I was like, man, it's going to be a heated battle. Watching his runs, I'm like, he seems like he's kind of better than me, This dude's absolutely killing it. And is also completely calm and in his own words, just chilling.
Yeah.
Right? Dude's just chilling. I'm I don't know how I can compete with that. I'm not chilling.
No,
at all.
You seem fairly intense. In a fun way. I feel like there's a pretty definitive line in between the two. I reached out to a mutual friend of ours, Adam Jabay, and kind of asked, I'm like, give me some insight on Robert Thorne. I could quote the whole thing if you wanted, but essentially he just said, he seems unshakable. That's just what it is. He just seems there's nothing that can break his concentration.
Yeah, if I want to, focus in for sure. And I feel like I've, from all the years of racing, right? Because, I've been racing for 20 plus years, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've been through it. I mean, you mentioned how many times I've been second and third in races and championships and all of that. So I'm not afraid to lose. That I'm not super. The only time I was super worried about winning was probably the last event last year. Where, when you're right on the edge of, achieving it, of course, then maybe I could have been a little shaken. But most of the times I feel like I've kind of been around the block enough now to be at least kind of calm. But pretty focused.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen enough of your in-car drifting wise. I watched a bunch of road race stuff and you look very attacky on the wheel. You're definitely using a ton of inputs. And watching a bunch of your crashes as well. It's you.
Yeah.
Dude, the 2019 and what is it, the GTS4 when you tried to dive down the middle and I'm like, whoa. No.
Yeah.
I didn't need to read the caption to know what was about to happen.
Yeah. I mean, being no fear for sure.
Yeah.
Which it's been good and bad. It's actually great in drifting, right?
Yeah, it's perfect in drifting.
You can't be worried about the car. You can't be worried about crashing. You can't be worried about smacking the wall or, rubbing up against another car. Really anything. Yeah. I mean, any bit of fear is hesitation. And then if you hesitate and drift, it's so obvious from the judge's perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I got absolutely railed by the judges in St. Louis qualifying last year because I was hesitant going into Outer 2.
Yeah.
And they were like, why is the score so low? I think it was Jared asking,
okay.
Well, he hesitated into 2. I went and watched back the video and I'm like, yeah, they're right. Damn it. They got me,
Yeah.
Why did it? I should have been fearless. I should have had the bumper smacking the wall like I've done so many times.
Yeah.
I remember after that, I made sure the whole rest of the weekend I hit the wall every single run.
A poor car.
I think Chris is getting so mad. Chris is always the one putting the bodywork back on the car in the pits.
Okay.
And he does an amazing job. Every time it goes out like nothing happened pretty much. And and got to hit the wall. Got to be fearless at least.
Is he the one who's also trying to weld your strut tower back together? Because it seems like a full-time task.
Yeah, that poor strut tower.
Yeah.
Well, Andy Smedgard, of course, was we had a whole crew there. We had Andy, we had Shane Patza, and they were going to town on the front of that car for sure. That thing was messed up. So, right, I caught the back of the wall And then I did the old, whiplash the front end. So I hit the back of the wall. This is Outer 2 at Irwindale. I should probably clarify. Outer 2 in Irwindale, last practice run before comp. The car's been perfect all day. No issues. Love the car. Can't wait for comp. Last run, almost didn't do it. Went out anyway. Osbo's following me. Go into Outer 2, of course, come in a little deep, smack the wall with the back of the car, and just as it gets adjusted and I slow up, Osbo comes and smacks the back of my car because I slowed down. Mm-hmm. And he was right. I mean, of course, he's practicing his last chase run before comp.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a good one. Yeah, it's going to be a good one. There's no hesitation. I mean, I slowed down because I hit the wall, and he comes in, smacks it, and I just dart front right into the wall. And that poor strut tower. I remember hitting the wall. I mean, I've hit stuff before in this car. It's usually completely fine. And I drive back and I'm looking at people's eyes get wide as I'm driving by, because the front strut tower is pushing the hood up.
Yeah.
The hood is open from the strut tower hitting it because it's jammed so far up. I got out. I'm ooh, Andy, you got some work to do, bud, because we're back out in 30 minutes. Regardless, we are going back to the line. So you better get to work. I'm going to go get the welder out of the trailer.
Yeah.
You get the biggest hammer you can find. We'll meet back here in about 10. And it was fine. It was fine. They fixed it.
I mean, the ratchet strap held it together for Lime Rock, so that's good.
Where were we?
Not Lime Rock, Laguna, sorry. Yeah.
So Irwindale, it seemed fine. And then, of course, my first run out in Laguna, we dive bombed, through the corkscrew, and I bottom out at the bottom and just jammed the strut tower back up. And then I ratchet strapped it down.
Yep. Put the fender right over top. No one knew the difference. It was great.
Yep.
Yeah. Statute of limitations is, I think we're good on that now. You can't get in trouble for it. So,
yeah. Adam probably saw it. Jabay probably saw it at some point.
Jabay is down for some sketchy shit. I mean, I've seen Jabay when the track goes cold. Jabay is down for some sketchy shit. So,
yep. Ooh, shout out to Jabay for letting me get into drifting also, because early on, I think I'd done 2 local drift events in just my 89 horsepower NA Miata.
Yeah.
And we had just put together an LS Miata. And I asked Jabay if I could come to Alpine for Alpine Horizon for drifting. And I didn't know what I was getting into, of course. And I'm welding in door bars. You're supposed to have a full cage. I'm well, I have a roll bar. And then if I weld in some door bars, maybe they won't notice. And so I did that. And Jabay is no. How much drifting experience do you have? No. And then somehow, and I finally it came down, I'm not playing my card. I'm oh, but I've been doing it a bit locally, which I hadn't. And finally I'm just Adam, I'm coming.
Yeah.
He's do not get me in trouble. It's just do not get me in trouble. I will absolutely kill you. I'm okay, thanks, buddy. And I roll out, in my all white Miata, with completely stock Miata with an LS in it. And I roll up between Forest, Vaughn, and the whole Falcon field in RTR. And there's lasers going, and there's the jump in the middle, and the 4-wheel thing's going. And I'm oh, what have I done? I drifted a go-kart track.
Yeah.
Twice. And I was I'm going to be in so much trouble.
So I'm glad you brought that up. I don't know if I've ever told this story here. But you and I have a very, very similar entry into drifting. Today, we have something kind of neat. I was able to poke and prod Ryan Sage a little bit and get you guys some savings on some cool merch. So use code podcast23 at checkout. Save yourself 20% on any FD merch. You can, hats, shirts, lanyards, whatever it is. You can't get this sign. That's mine. You're not getting that one. But basically everything else, use code podcast23 at checkout. Save yourself 20%. Rep some FD shirts, some hats, whatever, and we'll see you out there. Which is funny. So the first drift car I ever drove was a Miata. Now, we did a big, you may remember this, and I'm sure people listening at home may remember it, but we swapped a 4BT Cummins into a Mazda Miata for a drift car. Pretty wild.
Solid.
Made 800 foot-pounds.
I've definitely seen a video of this.
Yeah. It did pretty well. So we hauled that car all the way down to Atlanta for Grid Life Road Atlanta. And all I had done was parking lot drifting. And I managed
that was your first run down the hill at Atlanta. That was your first in a Miata with an 800-pound motor in the front.
Dude, 100%. Oh, no. There's video footage of it. Man, like same thing though. I'm sitting at the top of the hill. Nick Swan's there and, he's got his hand out and he's like looking and he like goes to wave me and then he stops me and I'm like, okay. And I'm like freaking open face helmet. I'm freaking out. And he's just like, I see him waving and like Vaughn, Chelsea, somebody else just blows by me and he's like, okay, you're good. I did my lap. I got the shots. I got the video. I come back around. Swan like pulls me aside. He's like, you need to get the fuck off this track. I'm like, yeah, I know. That was it.
It's like, no.
I did like 2 laps at Road Atlanta. It was the first time I'd ever drifted on track. That's why I have it back here. That's the real reason.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, so when I saw, I'm glad you told the story because I was going to bring it up because I have heard that story. And I'm like, damn, we're like the same guy. Like, oh, that's what I mean. I don't want to like condone people doing stupid shit, but like just saying yes to stuff and just being confident in your decisions will take you really far.
It doesn't hurt to say yes sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
like, yeah, no, I can do this. Yeah. Like stupid confidence will like, it can get you killed for sure.
Yeah.
But it can also make for some amazing stories. So, yeah, too funny.
Diesel Miata at Atlanta.
Dude, it was sick. It was, ran 175 shot of nitrous. Like, because the turbo was so huge.
Because I was saying to get it to spool.
It revved. I can't remember what it revved to. It did rev really high. We had a company who like built like tractor pull engines, build it for us. So like it was a built engine. It was incredible. A company called Northern Upfitters. So little small shout out for them. If you guys need diesel engines built, they're the guys. So I feel like I talked about it on the live stream already that you run a stock fuel cell, but furthering my research into the bare bones nature of your vehicle, I did notice you also have like no gauges or like dash or any real display in that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I can tell you kind of how it started. So one was that car originally was my Pro-Am car. And for Pro-Am, it was running in NA LS1 with 200,000 miles on it.
Nice.
With heads and cam. And I had a mechanical oil gauge and a temp sensor.
Which is so sketchy.
And that was it.
Those gauges are sketchy though. Because like if that line breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it didn't. It was fine.
Okay.
That was like, and I don't think I had a dash in Pro-Am either. So the reason this is important is because that's what the car was when it was, March 30th of 22.
Okay.
Which was when I got the call that I was allowed to run Pro-Am. Or sorry, I was allowed to run Pro Spec.
Right.
So I had from then till, I think it was that like 60 days or something like that, from then to Orlando, which was the first event. And it was an absolute mad thrash to rebuild that car. To be like, hey, what do we even need for Pro 2, right? I'd never been to an FD event. Right? I'd never been to one before. Oh. And I'd only maybe seen like one car, right? Which was like Josh's for like 30 minutes. And so I was like frantically looking through photos online of other people's FD cars to figure out like kind of what I needed. I'm like calling Josh on the phone, who's like the only FD driver I knew at the time.
It's Josh Love, right?
Josh Love, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I need help. Like, what do I need? And so he's like told me, and I'm like, okay, I need a motor. I need a quick change. I'm gonna need like a new angle kit. I want everything to be new. I've got a T56. I don't have money for a GSR, so hopefully the T56 will still not break, and I'll just bolt a supercharger to a motor. And right, so there was like, and then of course I had to have a Link ECU.
Yeah.
But they didn't offer a wiring harness at the time, and no one had yet made them for the for LS as far as like something you could just go buy. Yeah. Now you can go get them from 5 different companies. So it was a mad dash. So it was like, I remember like starting the car up, like 3 days before we left, we started the car up, and I hadn't done a dash yet. I didn't have time to do the harness for the dash or anything. So I just grabbed my Solo DL and stuck it to the windshield and plugged it into CAN and just got whatever would display on that. Because I knew that at least Link had the CAN output for AIM Solo, because I knew that's what they used for judging. Because it said in the rule book that that's what they were going to use. I'm like, okay, so I know that works. So I did that, and I had, engine oil pressure and temperature on that, and I just stuck that to the windshield. And then we loaded the car for Orlando. So, and I kind of just stuck with that for up until now, forever. Once you get used to something, I'm like, what else do I need? Like at the end of the run, I can look at temperature. And if the temps are good and it still has oil pressure, I'm going to keep running it.
That's fair.
That's about it. Like, yeah. I don't know what else you'd look.
You're not looking at RPM. You're not looking at
no.
But I mean, there are guys running, like tire temperature sensors, and they can see them in real time with 10 zones. And
I think tire temperature sensors would be pretty cool. Although honestly, the run's over so fast that all the tire pressure changes at least happen at the end, or like that happens between the runs.
Right.
Pressure changes like immediately ending the run. It's like a pound higher, but it's only been like 23 seconds. So of course it doesn't have enough time to actually like heat up the air inside the tire and raise the pressure. And then that comes, so it'll sit in the pits and it'll like raise pressure, and then it'll peak, and then it kind of comes back down. But external tire temperatures could be cool. I
mean, for the fronts at least, to like see scrubbing. I know guys have done it too, to like understand like how the tire's loading through the corners and stuff, because like with these sensors, they're multi-zone, right? Like it's not just like it's hot or cold. Like you can see the whole. There's got to
be a lot to learn for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think just I'm always fascinated about like burnout pit protocol and like what guys do, and like certain guys like they live by those sensors now, and certain guys like no, I just do, I take the release off of it. Yeah, I just take the release off and then I just run. Right, that's it. As soon as I see a bit of smoke, I know
sounds like good. Reader.
Yeah, I think it is Reader.
Sounds like Reader. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, just make sure you burn the release off and then pull it to the line.
Yeah. Yeah. It changes in smell. You'll taste it and then you're fine.
You're right.
That's like, that would be a Reader comment. Like,
yep.
Yeah. As soon as I taste it, get a little more sour, I know that the tires are good.
When you've been doing it that long, you could just sense it.
I'm almost positive I could do a blind smell test of all the tires on grid and nail it. Like
probably.
And similar with fuel too.
Yeah.
Fuels,
yeah. Like what? You can pick your brand.
Yeah. No, dude. I mean, those guys running VP, I'm usually pretty happy. It smells like candy. And then the guys on like Ignite
the VP
Red,
race fuel, right?
Yeah,
and then
Ignite Red's pretty spicy.
The E98 cars all kind of smell the same. They're not that fun.
It smells like college.
Oh my God. A little bit.
Oh man.
So Barebones, right? So I don't have a dash, which is a little odd, but I do have the little screen and it's kind of eye level, so I can glance at it if I have to, but I don't often. Stock pedal set still from Spec. Brake booster.
Yep.
And then I don't know what else is stock on that
fuel
car.
Tank.
Stock fuel tank. Yeah, that was another. I was planning on changing that for last year, and I have. Shout out to Radium. Those guys are the best. I absolutely love them. They take care of me so well, and have made it to the point. By through their advice and components. I've now ran a season in pro with a stock fuel tank. Don't have any fuel starve. Never had any issues. Right, and I don't know why I would change it now. Well, but of course,
centered, it sits low. Like it is. It's in a good spot.
It's as low. It's as centered. It's as light as it's going to get because it's. I mean, the thing weighs. You've taken plastic fuel tanks out of the car. They weigh like nothing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Now, I, of course, again, shout out to Radium. They have I have my 5-gallon fuel cell sitting there. All ready to drop in. I just have to cut the hole and put it in the car. Well, and I'm like, Man, I do like the stock fuel tank though. Plus, if I go to like Grid Life and I want to go party drift with the other ASM guy, Peter Collins, I can put 15 gallons in the car, because it's this big stock and just go run all day.
Yeah.
So that's super handy. But at the same time, if I put a 5-gallon fuel tank in, I can only do 2 runs at a time, maybe 3.
Yeah. But we'll see. Are you still running front mount rad?
Oh, and a front mount radiator.
Yeah. You literally go against
stock side.
You go against every piece of advice I offer to people, and it's so frustrating, but so inspiring. Like,
yeah. Stock size front mount rad. Works great. I've probably got the coolest water temps in the grid. I don't think I ever saw above like 210, even on the hottest days.
I know guys running like 260.
Yeah, it's hard to get cool air in the back of the car, and then of course you're relying on fan power alone. So I've got a pretty good advantage with it in the front. Definitely some disadvantages. I'm not worried about rear weight. You may have seen a lot of guys shifting weight forward. Mm-hmm. There's with how grippy the rear tires are now and how big of a stagger we have in sizing. The whole season is just a battle of front grip, which it's odd to say that, a drift car understeers, but everyone's, number one battle and concern on car setup is understeer right now. So a little extra front weight certainly doesn't hurt. With that said, I might actually move the radiator to the back next year. And I have a good reason.
Okay.
It's because I want to put the intercooler in the front. I want better cooling for the intercooler, and the front air is better. There's going to be a higher differential temperature for it, right? Where the radiator, so what if the water's 230? It's fine. As long as we have enough coolant pressure, then I'm not really that worried about it. So probably switch them. I'll put the intercooler in the front next year and the radiator in the back. So
interesting. I think
that works.
Side ducting is one of the things that I've seen that's worked really well. Like I know guys who just drive party events and they're like, I side duct because I'm sideways most of the time.
Right.
So why are we trying to scoop air from the front when the air is literally trying to go past that?
Yeah.
Like, you're not producing a zone for it to go into.
You need like a little flap. So the leading window is like open and the trailing window like
baffles
seals
in a
shut.
Fuel tank?
Like baffles. Yes.
That
way it pressurizes. And then you go the other way, they flop the other way.
Do it.
Okay.
That's actually sweet. Yeah, that's good.
It'd be fun.
Yeah, it's exactly like a baffled oil tank or a baffled fuel tank or whatever. Huh.
Get a little air pressure stuck there.
I want to know why guys aren't running water spray. I don't know, maybe it's a rule thing, but why not run water
some
sprayers?
do.
Do they?
Some do. Yeah.
Well, I know everybody's got a guy that works for sandwiches that sprays, but
I've seen plenty of party cars with water sprayers on them.
Yes,
I just don't know about pro FD cars.
And then if they happen to also drip onto the tires, oh no. Sorry, Kevin.
Oh, poor Kevin.
I know.
He's like, no.
No, I don't.
Stop trying to bend them rules.
I do think that tire sprayers are not allowed. Although I don't know. I'm gonna have to look if they're explicitly not allowed. I don't know if you remember this. Might have been before your time.
I think it just says it can't hit the track. I don't think it says it can't hit the tires.
Do you remember the Irwindale where Chelsea Denova, there was one puddle left in Irwindale and Chelsea Denova was just driving his car through it after every run? And it took one run before everyone went, oh shit, I know what he's doing. It's a water pit. He's got a water pit now.
Right.
So
yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not just spray the tires? I mean, the other one would be CO2, but then you got another canister that's in there that you got to deal with and stuff. But
yeah, I've seen also just nitrous purges. But then they just spray on the coolers.
Yeah.
They just sit there between the runs and purge the nitrous onto the coolers.
Yeah. Why not? I don't know. I think there's a bunch of room for creativity, but also the more you add, the more that can go wrong and the more problems you're gonna have.
For sure, reducing complexity is got to be worth something. And a lot of these things that can deal with the temperatures. Again, as long as you have it set up for it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with running 240 degree water temp as long as you have the pressure overhead and you're not going to have cavitation on the cylinder liners or anything that you have enough water pump to flow it. then go for it. I mean, the motor's not going to care.
Yeah.
So it's just if you don't have everything right, then you start to run out of that margin up top for extra. There's a reason the cooling fans on some cars don't turn on until 235.
Right. That's fair.
Because that's okay.
Yeah.
And the higher, differential temperature, the more cooling power is available. So
is there a piece of technology or like a piece of either like etiquette or information that drifting in general is missing from the road like racing world?
No, I don't think so. If anything, I feel like the drift scene is almost better with it. Like you could probably go, ask half the road racers what Ackerman is and they wouldn't have any clue.
It's a good point.
They certainly aren't going to know what trail is. I didn't even know what trail was, I was like, what are you talking about? They might know what camber is. They might know what caster is. They're not going to know what kingpin inclination is. Not many, at least. And let alone like how to use it or understand, why you want scrub radius, why more scrub radius might be better. Setup wise, tuning tools. I think data is a bit underutilized from what I've seen in drifting. For sure, I was trying to work with Josh a little bit on that, when he's telling me about his runs, and I'm trying to figure out what I can do on the car to help him. And then, finally, starting to dig into the data and coming up with, moments in data where you can see the driver's inputs and see in the inputs that they're struggling with something. And, you can pretty easily see, on an input, okay, well, the driver's full throttle and he's left foot braking and the RPMs are decreasing. Okay, well, that's a problem. He obviously doesn't want that. His foot's to the floor and RPM's going down and he's left foot braking. So the car's not staying wide enough for him and he's not able to build enough RPM to fix that problem either. Right. So, okay, so now the car needs more power.
Yeah.
Or the car needs to be loosened up if power is not an option.
Brake bias is not set correctly.
Or we need to run the brake bias forward, and then you have some more talking points. And, when you have a really good run, you'll see that like all of the inputs are like almost utilized partly, you'll see a little bit of left foot brake, you'll see jabs of full throttle, but then maintenance and adjustments. And you can kind of pick out what is like a good run versus a run where the driver might be struggling. And that's like that's the most basic stuff. I mean, we're not even talking about like actually like looking at, lines, right? Of course they have GPS. You can look at lines, you can do overlays. That's just kind of blindly looking at one run. Steering angle. I heard a couple teams start, that of course run steering pots. I don't have them, but a lot of the road race community and certainly every single car, running at a professional level would have all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Every team running a pro program in motorsports would have all of this. They would have an engineer that pulls data at the end of every run and goes through it and then delivers a copy to the driver in the driver's laptop. And they would go through it. And then another copy would be sent to the engine, whoever was doing the engine management. And maybe that's something that isn't fully there. And of course, that's budget also, right? Because these things are expensive. I mean, you got to pay for the data parts, the wiring, everything adds up, let alone paying an engineer and a tire guy and an engine guy and then having the time. A lot of us, just like myself, I can't just be the driver at the event. It's also my car and I know all the parts on it and I'm looking it over also. And, trying to help run the team and make sure everyone's where they're supposed to be. Things like that. There's only a couple teams, maybe 3-4 teams where the driver's only the driver.
Yeah.
You're only the driver. That's your only job.
Yeah.
Is to just drive the car. And then when you're not driving the car, work on driving the car better.
Right.
You know, work on learning, you know, reviewing your runs, reviewing the data, reviewing other drivers, whoever you're going to battle against. Just focus on driving the car and driving the car as good as you can. And then have everyone else in line to do everything else. I think, you know, a lot of that is the reason why RTR was so successful this year. It's because they're one of the teams that take that stance quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, Osbo is like that.
And Osbo.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure he's
Odie
doing a lot more than that, but yeah.
Yeah, and I don't mean to say that too directly, because of course, you know, you'll see Vaughn under his own car.
Oh, yeah.
You'll see, you know, of course, you know, Odie, of course, on his car.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of teams that want, you know, that level, but you know, at the same time, it's still a business, right? So
yeah. Well, and we're still more or less.
There's only so many resources.
Yeah, we're still fledgling. I mean, like we talk about like 20 years, but like in the grand scheme of motorsport, that is so narrow. Yeah. Like I know when we talk, like, you know, I've always said, like, if one of these large corporate sponsors from one of the name any racing league even realized how cheap drifting was to run with the amount of reach that it gets, it would be a no-brainer. But I think personally a lot of it is just like the people that are in those positions of power are at an age where drifting is not something that they grew up with. They're not acknowledging it. They just think it's a fad, whatever. But the upside is that, like, we are now getting to the point where people who were into drifting 15 years ago are now getting into positions of power, and we're starting to see these budgets come out. We just need, like, you know, somebody at DHL, like a guy that grew up on drifting, be the head of marketing for DHL, right?
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. It is a very young sport still, isn't it?
Yeah, it's super young. Like, I mean, 20 years in the US. So that's not a lot of time to, you know, prove your worth. Cause like really you take the first 5-6 years of it, you can kind of like write that off as like, oh, it was just a fad. So no, like not many, obviously a lot of brands took it seriously. There's a lot of people that came into the sport and stuff like that. Like, I don't want to discredit it those first 5 years, but like, we're still waiting for like an M&M's car, right? Or a DHL car, a FedEx car, a Bank of America car, like very, very large multi-billion-dollar multinational companies.
It's got to be coming.
We've seen
you see our numbers creeping closer and closer into the NASCAR numbers and exceeding them in some areas. And those corporate sponsors are going to be coming at some point.
I don't disagree. I think, you know, getting the show up on MAV TV provides credibility to those people in power, because like I've even with my dad, like when we first started doing this, like he's like, well, is it on TV? Can I watch it on satellite? And I'm like,
right.
No, you have to go onto a computer. He's like, well, I'm not at work, so I'm not doing that. And like, I think back to that conversation.
We're just getting over that. We're just getting over the whole, like, normal households do not have cable television.
No, it's crazy.
That's just starting now. Like, I haven't had it for a long time. And I know a lot of people that don't now.
I bought my first house 10 years ago, and like we had satellite for a month and a half, and I got the first bill and it was like $300. I'm like, yeah, hard no. Like, nope, done.
Pass.
Bye. Come pick it up.
What's my internet bill? Like $50? Yeah, I'll do that. Thanks.
Yeah. I wish Canada's internet is brutal, but yeah. Sorry.
Well, mine's not that anymore, but I do remember like my first like apartment.
Yeah.
And being like, oh, yeah, you know what? I don't need TV. I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, I just got YouTube. We're good.
Yeah, I got YouTube and Netflix. That's been around for a while, right?
Yeah, it's been a minute.
That DVD in the mail.
Yeah, that thing. That like replaced Redbox and
yeah. Yep.
I do think there's still a Redbox at like a grocery store.
I have one here in town. I swear, like they must just be owned by dollar stores now, because that's where they are. If you have a dollar store, you've got a Redbox. Probably have a contract.
Fair. Huh. See, but like there's like I don't know, like Dollar General. Why don't we have a Dollar General?
General. Well,
I know people have tried. Like I know I've had so many discussions with drivers about like, who have you pitched? Who have you gone to?
Everyone's pitched like Love's, Dollar General, 7-Eleven.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
any truck stop.
7-Eleven.
Please pay for my diesel.
7-Eleven is an interesting one because like if you look at their marketing team now, it is very young.
I know.
I'm
having my Miata wrapped 7-Eleven. Josh is working on the 7-Eleven icy. Slurpees.
Yeah, of course.
People are like, are they going to sponsor you? I'm like, no. Well, but it's going to be awesome.
We saw like Circle K jump in very briefly with a Pro 2 driver back in the day. Carolina, I can't pronounce her last name. I believe she's Polish or Ukrainian. But like they had a small logo there, and I was like, oh shit, this might be it. But I don't think it moved past there. I don't know. One day.
I feel like a lot of the big brands are trying to get into that, like the paddock space.
So I'm glad you said that. Like there is, for lack of a better term, man, I might have to edit this one out, but like
maybe
it's a big dick swinging move where you're like, come to my suite at the racetrack. I am a corporate person.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you look at F1 tickets, right? You get into the paddock space or corporate space, it's ridiculous amounts of money. We're talking like $30,000, $50,000 to get into these places. Like maybe that's what it is. Maybe like, but the problem is like, is it a build it and they will come? Like, do we have these like paddock spaces that we can rent out? Like we have it at some tracks where like you can have a suite.
Sure.
Is that enough? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we had a suite at New Jersey.
Yeah.
And, I had, people up there. We're supposed to have some corporate people up there. Of course, no one showed up, but like 4 people show up.
Hey man, I had a birthday party like that once too when I was 10. So
that happens.
But like you look at like IMSA, right? That's all B2B brands. Like, Salesforce is sponsoring F1.
Right.
Right. Like,
but that's the thing, that they're sponsoring F1, not like a team.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like where you get that weird, like how many of these larger brands are like, no. One car, that's too small. I want to sponsor FD.
Interesting.
I want to sponsor Grid Life.
I want all of it.
I want to, right.
So like, do we just start asking for more money in the proposals? Do we go, it's $500,000. You want to be part of this team? It's $500,000. Like,
that way,
because that's also a discussion that like,
and it's 2 cars. It's 2 cars.
Yeah.
It's 2 car team.
$500,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard that discussion as well. Like, I mean, once again, like not naming names, where guys are like, part of the issue is that like younger guys getting into drifting, not even FD, just like in general, undervalue their influence. And then I speak to this company like, well, I can sponsor this kid with 5,000 YouTube subscribers for like $50 and a handshake. Why would I give you $100,000 when data-wise you're not that different? Like,
yeah, that's true. But you get the, I guess you have to capitalize on the, in real life interactions. Like you said, they, it has to be a place where they can utilize those track experiences either for their, their customers, their own personal fan base, their clients, whether it's, hey, we travel the country, hey, you have clients all over the nation.
Yeah.
Perfect. We're going to have events all over the nation in big cities, and we're going to have a space for your clients and customers.
Yeah.
In order to come out and be entertained.
Take your best performing customer or best performing client, or if you're a reseller, your best performing salesperson. And if they do well, they get to come to this event and get catered and get to hang out with the race team for a weekend.
Yeah, sometimes that's all it takes.
That should be in every single FD pitch.
Yeah. I swear that's half of what all the NASCAR sponsors and teams are about. I mean, it's all about like...
We go to the track. We sponsor this team. We go to the track. Dude.
We go to the track and we see our team.
I looked into, with my own company, sponsoring like the local junior hockey team. And it's cheaper for me to do that than it is to buy season tickets in a lot of cases. I can get like a box that's catered. And that is cheaper than me buying like my family season passes for the year.
Right.
I could bring clients, like I could bring friends, I could do whatever the hell I want. So anyways. We'll solve all the world's issues here. I get so heated about
we just talk about this for like 4 hours.
Just straight sponsor talk. And like
sponsor pitches.
The problem is like nobody.
It's a new segment.
Yeah, just sponsor pitches.
Jacob and Robert.
We just throw ideas against each other. What do you think? It's like Dragon's Den, but drifting. What do you guys call it? Shark Tank. Shark Tank. That's it.
Yeah. Shark Tank.
Yeah. I don't know. I always like to just talk about the stuff that people don't publicly talk about. I think sponsorship, car setup, the politics of drifting, the team dynamics, like these like taboo subjects, like we all talk about it in the pits.
The politics is good entertainment.
Oh, buddy.
Oh man,
I could get fired so quick.
I feel like I sit on the sidelines. Like I feel like I'm so neutral that I just like sit and watch. I haven't had anything like super controversial, so I'm just like, yet. What's going on? I just watch the show.
You'll hit somebody in practice, and that'll be it. Your reputation's gone. Someone's gonna be like, "Yeah, Robert drives too hard in practice," and that's it. It's over.
You're not wrong. Yeah, have I hit anyone in practice? I don't think so.
Yeah,
I did. I hit more people in practice last year for sure. Well, I mean, everyone in pro's so good; they don't like mess up that often. So,
dude, yeah, it's wild.
Yep.
It's wild.
Maybe I don't hit anyone because I'm slow. Chelsea hits me every practice round.
Chelsea hits everybody, but like it's not like a disrespectful hit though.
No, I give him. I high five after it.
Yeah. It's
like as long as it's like perfect.
Yeah.
It's just like a perfect rub. It's like a reminder. Like, dude, your car's still slow. Can you let's go?
It's almost
if he's
like
pushing you through the corner, you're like, all right, I'll go lower the tire pressure more.
It's like a hitman leaving a chocolate on your pillow. Be like, I can kill you anytime I want to.
Yeah,
but I'm just reminding you of that.
Just reminding you, like, all right. I'll come back to the pits. I'm like, boys, we got to spice it up a little bit. Yeah. Chelsea says it's not enough.
Yeah. What did he say to you? See that rubber mark on the door? That's what he said to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. It only happened 4 times.
So as somebody who has driven both extreme and obscure cars, like we're talking RX-8, Volvo C30, which you did incredible in, 12C, an R8 LMS, is there any of those? Yeah. I'm reminding you of cars you've driven now.
Don't forget about the S2000, my baby.
And the S2000.
My pride and joy. Yeah.
Several BMWs, NA Miata. I mean, I literally got a whole, I can send you your notes.
I don't discriminate. But I'll drive anything.
What of those cars would you say had the most soul?
That's an easy one. So, and it was all hand-built car. So I have to give props to 3R. 3R Racing out of Colorado built the Volvo S60 race car that ran World Challenge.
Right.
And this is a car that will lap with modern GT3 cars. Like on par. Absolutely. Like in fact, on a 1-lap qualifying battle, it'll probably crush them. And not only that, I mean, it can go out and do 40-minute race. It ran World Challenge, won the championship multiple times, driven by Randy Post and Alex Figge, and I can't remember the third driver for a little while. Anyway, long story short, I got to drive the car for a number of tests, and I was scheduled to drive it for the season. I ended up running the McLaren for the first time, but then the team switched to McLarens because they said only GT3 cars in the championships. This is the last year, right, of professional road racing in hand-built cars.
So 2014, right?
Yeah.
Probably World Challenge. Okay.
Yeah. And so this was the off season before that, and man, the S60. So this was this was a 4-wheel drive, car. It weighed 3,000 pounds, right? Pretty chunky, and it had a transverse drivetrain, Volvo 5-cylinder, and 600-700 horsepower, and it was like for 1 lap is the best car I've ever driven. Sequential gearbox, and it had a lot of soul, because like the way it drove was like kind of everything you dream about when it comes from like what a car could do if it was just the best. Because it was 4-wheel drive. I was a track. It was at High Plains Raceway where you could jam it into first gear, cut the wheel, and leave the corner with all four wheels spinning. And then pound through sequential gears, second, third, fourth. It's like what I'd imagine like the Hoonicorn would be like to drive.
Okay.
Just an absolute badass four-wheel drive car with tons of power. I never raced it, but I just got to drive it once. I got to drive it the last time it was ever driven. All three are in storage somewhere in California now. There's 3 chassis. They're still fully assembled in Jim's warehouse. And that was a cool car. GT3 cars are cool.
You got to win.
After that,
you got to win a couple podiums in that McLaren. So
Yep. Yeah, the McLarens were really cool. The RX-8 was pretty good too. 3-rotor, right? So you can just imagine the sound. 3-rotor. It was a Riley built tube frame chassis. These were built by Speed Source. Back in the day. What was this? 2008?
2008.
I think I did the Daytona 24 hours. I was 17 at the time. And I was driving for Racers Edge. So we were like the second team running these basically like factory backed RX-8s, right? Because this is when RX-8s were production cars at the time. But they ran the 3-liter engine. They were pretty sporty. I mean, this is like the other end of the spectrum. This is like the ultimate in like super lightweight, full tube frame chassis, carbon, single piece carbon fiber body, low mount. The engine is just mounted right next to you. Basically, these things were screaming rocket ships, and it was cool. And of course, we were all deaf by the end of the race. 24-hour race in these cars, split between. I think we had 4 drivers for that one. I did the Daytona 24 with 3 drivers. That was long.
Yeah.
But that car was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
So
that's wild. I didn't have any info on that other Volvo. So that's sick.
I've got one YouTube clip of me driving it.
Oh, really?
Before I started YouTube. And it's just like an in-car video. And I don't think there was anything. I didn't do a lot of social media back then. So.
Yeah. I will say probably the most fun clip that I found is you doing 2 laps at Mosport for Star Mazda.
Oh yeah.
Also, I grew up like right near that track. So for me, it was like scrolling through, I saw it. Yeah. I was like, holy shit.
I have it. I'm looking for my Mosport. It's here somewhere. I think it fell down. I thought it was right. I thought it was right there. Maybe it's behind the TV. So you have the track behind you. I have a Mosport.
Okay.
The wood cutout.
Yeah. That's so cool. I literally grew up 15 minutes from that track. So
yeah, if any of my bios growing up and it said like, what's your favorite track? Right. Because they always have the stupid bio things. So mine's always Mosport Canada.
Really? That's so cool. Huh.
Yeah. freaking love that track.
Old F1
So of course,
track,
and part of it was doing the test, right? In the Formula cars.
Yeah.
God, was that, I mean, it just felt, it's like the biggest, like, grab your balls and go for it laps.
And if you watch that clip, that's what you're doing. Like the way you're attacking steering input, I'm like, oh, this guy's trying to get everything out of this car. Like you could, it literally looked like you were battling for the lead the whole time.
Yeah. It's a burn it to the ground lap.
That's a good way of putting it. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah.
Burn it to the ground lap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there like any other cool racing memories? I remember seeing like a clip of you at Lime Rock, like going 4 wide into turn 1. Like you've got to have some like pretty nuts, crazy stuff that's happened over the years.
Yeah. There's been some good ones. I got a couple memories from Mid Ohio, some good, some bad. But yeah, as far as cool clips, I guess I didn't get into doing YouTube until 2019.
Right.
And that was after, so I did an event, which I wish, the reason I started YouTube was I did this event, One Lap of America, and I didn't film anything. And there were so many things that happened on it that I wish I had even a couple pictures of, to like savor the memory of the adventure. And I said I would never do it again without videoing it. And then I started YouTubing stuff after that. Because I was like, even if no one ever watches this, like I feel like I'm documenting my life, whether it's just like my family members will watch it, or I can go watch it back, or, ever have kids, show it to my kids, whatever it is, it's a documentation of anything that, happens. So good or bad. And I definitely, for the first, I think I did, kind of 3 years of YouTube without too many gaps, and definitely really enjoyed it from that aspect, like actually capturing and remembering all of the cool things that happen. You asked me like, what's some favorite clips? And I'm thinking about all kinds of things I remember that happened that I don't have any footage of. I remember at Mosport, jumping the back of the Formula BMW over another car and landing my front wing on top of their rear wing. And then like riding that down the hill until they came off. And then I specifically remember it because I then had to go to the steward after the race and come up with an excuse for why I did it. Now, luckily, there wasn't footage of anything back then.
It's all hearsay.
It was all hearsay.
Yeah, allegedly
this happened. And I remember I walk in and he has the rear crash box from 3 different cars. He's like, apparently, all 3 of these are damaged from your car.
Wow.
I was like, sir, I don't know what you're talking about. That could have been anyone.
Yes, any of these cars. It's like your front wing is like hanging off. You're like, no idea who did it. But if you find him, you let me know.
That's partially why I was a little crashy in my younger age. Now I try to like settle up. You'll see it come out sometimes, I made it through like almost 2 years of NASA before it came out, and I crashed everyone in the final race.
Hitting the BMW and Road Atlanta. That was a good one.
Hitting the BMW. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I forgot about that one too.
It was a good one. You tried to dive in, buddy. Like cut the apex off.
Yeah.
So he should have checked his mirrors.
Yep. That was Catesby, wasn't it? Yeah, I hit Catesby, Atlanta.
Yeah.
I hit Andy. You mentioned the 4 wide clip going into Lime Rock. You know why? I was like, 3 is good, but I could probably make it 4. Like there was no rush. Like their only outcome of that race was going to be me and Tom out front battling it out for the lead, because we were both like on average a second and a half faster than anyone that weekend.
Yeah.
And yet here I am on the first lap, for the 4th car wide, passing, the team owner, putting him in the sandwich. But of course, I ended up just rubbing on Andy. Luckily, he didn't turn me in for it. Thanks, Andy. And then getting off of that. And then I came down, and then I ended up on the outside of our other team car with Matt Walbaum. And then we also hit each other. Yeah. See, this is why I drift now. See, people get a lot less mad.
Yeah. 100%.
And in drifting, you're allowed to hit your teammate. They don't even get mad.
No.
It's almost preferred.
It's like high fives.
It's like high fives. Yeah, a little bump on your teammates preferred. Yeah. Road racing, you get frowned upon. Adam Jabay will come down and yell at me, and he'll be like, Robert.
I will say there is no
you.
better experience in the world than waking up hungover to Adam Jabay's voice at 8 a.m. when the track's starting to go hot. Like there is something about that man. I don't get to spend nearly enough time with him, but he is one of my favorite human beings. And then when I found out like he actually listened to the show, I was like, dude, I didn't even know you liked drifting. He's like, yeah, dude. I'm like, I'm all about it. I'm like, really? Yeah, I hope he makes it this far into the show, because he is one of my favorite human beings of all time.
Yep.
Yeah. Love that guy.
For sure.
Yeah. Does he still have his full-time job
pressure.
too? Yeah. We should get him in a drift car.
No way. We had him drift Andy's 350Z at NOLA 2 years ago.
Okay.
I know that's not recent. I'm just saying.
No, I'll take it.
He seemed like he had fun,
That's the thing about drifting. Like once I don't know if I've ever heard of somebody get out of a drift car and be like, not for me. Like, I don't think it's ever happened.
Right. Right. No, you're absolutely right.
it's just getting them into the car. That's the hard part. It's like, whoa, I don't know about this. This looks dangerous. And like, it is. It's amazing.
Absolutely. I have trouble with some of my like autocross friends, or, you know, the like guys that are just like lightly into DE stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like, I can't imagine, you know, being able to afford to drift. I'm like, man, it's surprisingly easy to justify once you realize how much fun you're having.
Yeah. Smiles per dollar is probably one of the best ratios out there.
I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I understand like it's going to cost a little bit of money, but even if you're just out there and you're like beat up 350Z and you bring, you know, 4 tires with you a day, like I cannot describe how much fun you're going to have.
Yeah.
Compared to like anything else. Like take however much, you know, so that's going to, you know, $300 you got into that day if it's a local event. Mm-hmm. Like you'll never spend a better $300.
Yeah. I agree. I think there's a point of diminishing return with cost and fun. I also think it depends on where your mindset is. Like I realized years ago, like I am not competitive enough to be a competitive drifter. I'm also not good enough. Realized that pretty quick. But for me, like that same thing, like I've always built really shit cars. I've always built cars that are weird and obscure, like the Miata. I used to drift like an old Ford Thunderbird turbo coupe. You know, even my BMW, that was like a BMW, it was a 540i, so it was a boat. Like, it's never been a like S chassis or a Z or whatever. But I enjoy that. I enjoy the struggle. Like, I'm a glutton for punishment. I want to drive something that no one else is driving, that's super hard, that's always needs tinkering, that can always be a little bit better. But I don't know. Maybe I'd change my mind if somebody put me in a proper car. I have no idea.
Yeah, it sounds like you need to get behind the wheel of, okay, next time you're at a Grid Life event, we'll stick you in with Pete in the in MS7. You know, the white and blue ASM E46. Yeah, Peter Collins. Yeah, he'll get you in there. Plus we've got like 5 drift cars in the ASM fleet of drift cars now, and we're building 2 more this winter. So we'll get you in. You can go through like all the levels, you know, anywhere from like our really beater one, work you all the way up to like driving my pro car.
That would be a fun series. Like take a semi-competent drifter, right? Like somebody like who isn't amazing, and just like, okay, we're going to start you in 100 horsepower, see what you can do, and then that'd be neat. I'd fly to Oklahoma for that.
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll start in like the Mustang, you know, which makes like 150 horsepower right now on a good day. And then we'll just work you up.
That would be a cool series.
I put Cerise Taylor. Is that
Cerise?
Yep. I put her in my pro car at Heartland Park last year.
I did see that. Yes.
Yeah. And she killed it. She had fun. She burned off a set of tires and 2 laps. And of course, you know, she's like, they're already gone. And I'm like, yeah. There's like 700 horsepower. That's
how this works.
You kind of push the pedal down 3 or 4 times, and then that's it. They're just smoke and mirrors.
They evaporate.
Yeah. The pro car is so easy, though. I mean,
I guess.
At least the pro spec car is really easy because you've still got, you don't have that tire stagger. You've got 255s on the front and 255s on the back, and enough power to just waste them in a second. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, it has tons of angle. It's the best of all worlds. Once you get like huge tire stagger or you get really gripped up, then it does get a little tricky.
Well, you're wrestling at that point. You're wrestling the car the whole time.
It's a bit of a fight. And then we're tuning the cars to do not what they're supposed to do, right? We're tuning them to be fast, which makes no sense.
I still think, I said this in Nick's episode, I think we might see a shift. I think we might.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. It's not like, I mean, trust me, I like the struggle. You know, every time I'm in a driver's meeting and someone's like, this is hard because of this or that. And I'm like, yeah, it's supposed to be. Like, isn't that why it's fun? They're looking at me like I'm crazy, you know, because I'm like,
you're like, all right, new guy.
No, this is great. It's great. No, it's awesome. You can't see outer 2 at all. It's perfect.
Yeah.
They're like, what are you talking about?
Where do you?
Well, we all can't see it.
Where do you fall in this tire debate?
You're going to love it. I love how hard it is. So, okay, I have 2 opinions. Okay, so I have 2 arguments, right?
Yeah.
One is I do want it to be like the pinnacle of the sport, right? So how weird would it be if F1 wasn't the fastest cars?
Yeah.
Right? Like if F1 was like, well, it was really good racing though.
But,
no, it's really good racing.
But
they're like slow.
This generation of F1 cars are not the fastest cars.
Yeah, but they're still the fastest cars right now.
Right. I agree. But they have not always continuously gotten faster. There have been ebbs and flows in their track times. Like Valtteri Bottas,
and they have done it to improve racing. So that's a good point. They've done it to improve racing.
Right. They've taken speed out to make wheel-to-wheel action better.
Wheel-to-wheel action better. Okay, fair enough. All right, so we don't want to go too far, right? Because we don't want the cars to not be the coolest cars in the world. So I think that's important. I want to make sure that the car you bring out, in order for it to be competitive, it needs to be the best car in the world.
Okay.
Which is very counterintuitive probably to a lot of people's thoughts, where they're like, well, I want it to be affordable, or I want it to be, equal, or I want this chassis to be competitive with that chassis, know, and I want to make sure that it's still the pinnacle of the sport, that's still required. Would it maybe be a little easier if the cars were a little slower? Could the drifting be closer together more often? Yeah, probably. Okay. The cars are a little gripped up. The thing is that no matter what you do, we're going to keep making them that way. We're going to keep making them gripped up. So you can change the rules, but it's not going to change us from making the setups that way. Making the car as fast as possible in the setup, that's not going to stop happening. So you might limit the rear tire, and then we figure out, well, maybe now it's faster if I put a smaller tire on the front. And then all of a sudden the car is difficult to drive again.
It's that like every time you make a better mousetrap, you just make a smarter mouse.
Right. And that's like you said in the F1 rules, every time they make a rule that slows them down, but that lasts like 3 years until they break the track records again.
Yeah.
They'll figure out, and we'll figure out how to make them stupid. The tire manufacturer will figure out. Yeah. They're going to figure out how to make us 300 treadwear tires that make the cars do wheelies.
Yeah, it'll happen.
We're gonna have 245s that'll pick the front wheels up off the ground.
Yeah.
SCCA did this. Me and Hyde-Cotter. So me and Hyde-Cotter come from Autocross. Well, of course, maybe people don't know Brian Hyde-Cotter.
Probably not in this.
Brian Hyde-Cotter. Okay, so he's the one that won GT Academy.
Right.
Like the movie Gran Turismo? Right. Okay. So Brian Hyde-Cotter, he's the one that won GT Academy and then actually went GT racing. Mm-hmm. And we ran together in World Challenge. So we ended up at the same year at the same time. Well, we were both originally just autocrossers. So we'd fly to the World Challenge events and then fly directly from there to Lincoln, Nebraska to go play in a parking lot. We'd be on the same flight. I'd be running my S2000. He had his 350Z. Yeah. So Brian Hyde-Cotter and I were talking about this because he spots for Forsberg.
Right.
And we were talking about the change on trying to change the treadwear rating on the tires. And the SCCA did this. So you know how everything's a 200 treadwear tire now? Well, it used to be they were all 140s. There was no 200 treadwear tires. Mm-hmm. They were all 140. And then the SCCA one day changed their rule book. They said, okay, they're trying to make it more affordable. So they said only 200 treadwear tires are allowed. And then the next year, all of the manufacturers, which maybe you would think aren't paying attention to autocross, re-released all the same tires with 200 treadwear stamps on them. And we're talking Dunlop, Brigstone, right? Big manufacturers.
White out and just write it back.
Yeah. And so, there was a date switch and it's the same tire and all of a sudden it'll just be branded 200 treadwear.
Right.
Because it's not a real thing. Mm. It's a rating, but the rating is made by the manufacturer basically. So you can expect the same thing. I mean, so we have tire manufacturers competing against each other in FD.
Yeah.
So if you change the rule and say it's 300 treadwear now, I can guarantee you the GT2 RS next year will be a 300 treadwear tire.
Yeah. or it'll be like, because that's where like we got into like caliper sizes, because what a 255 was, or whatever was it actually.
Well, right? Yeah, but you can go to road racing's been through this. Again, they're a little older, so they've done this like 10 times.
Yeah.
So NASA did this, right? They said, okay, the class can only be a 245, right? And then Hoosier came out the next year. They came out with a 245 to fit square on a 10. Mm-hmm. And then they said, okay, now what?
Yeah.
So
your move.
now you can, they have a template, a little template, and they say it can be this big.
Yeah.
And it just has to fit over the tire. And the reason this is important is because you can run a 275 on an 8-inch wide wheel. Mm-hmm. If you think that's what's going to be best, or you can run a 245 on a 10-inch wide wheel. As long as when you put this gauge block over the tire, it touches the tread, it sits flat.
Yeah.
And that's it. The manufacturers can do whatever they want. We don't care about the sizes. It just has to fit in this.
Well, it's almost, I don't know if they did this. This is hearsay, but like, it's almost like the Nittos. Like the Nittos, if you go on FD's own channel right now. They did a slow roll episode with the RTR guys, and go watch the way that those Nittos operate at angle. And like, basically the sidewall is just tread patch. Like they just roll extra over. Tread. Yeah, they just roll over and the contact patch stays the same.
Right.
Like Nitto went, I don't know who I'm quoting, but like they understood the assignment.
Someone.
Yeah, they understood the assignment.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. It has to fit in here. Well, they spend most of their time on shoulder roll anyways. Why don't we just build a better shoulder that wraps all the way up and around?
And none of these tires are the size they say they are. So, you can make your 315 whatever size you want. Just like you can make the 295 whatever size you want. I mean, there's no like council, there's no like mandated, there's no restrictions or anything like that. I mean, I have a 275 in the shop that's smaller than a 245 right now. I mean, that's just a fact. That they don't have to be the size that's stamped on them.
Well, that's why if we go back to like Grid Life Rulebook, I remember for a while, like it was like specific tires and specific sizes.
Yes, exactly.
Because they figured that out. I can't remember what they were. It was like the Super Sports or something. Yeah.
Some tire where it's like, that's too big.
Yeah. Yeah. Like this isn't a 215 and it's like, yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, we had the AO52 and Grid Life's like, no, you just don't get to use the AO52.
Or
like that's too much.
Yeah. The Corvette rule where like Corvettes basically had to make their own class.
Right. The Kumo ACR tire.
Right.
They just straight up just banned it from everything.
Yeah. Because
it's like a 200 treadwear tire that you have to run tire warmers on to get the performance out of it. And it only lasts like 2 laps.
Well, even I mean,
but it's 200 treadwear.
Going back to drifting, like the Vitor 140s, like,
sure.
I don't know if you've ever seen those or felt those or whatever. Like they're
not
Vitor, Velinos. The Velinos. Sorry, Velino.
Well, the Vitor is pretty sticky.
Vitor's pretty sticky too. Yeah.
Yeah. The Velino is comical how fast those things can come apart sometimes. Yeah. I remember the first time I encountered one, I was chasing Jack Davis.
Oh yeah, I know Jack.
Yeah. I encountered Jack Davis on 08Rs. A wild Jack Davis on 08Rs at a Pro-Am event. And I remember like it was the first time I was blinded by smoke, not just the smoke, but I didn't have my visor down and like actually blinded by the volume of rubber flying off the tires as they just evaporated in about 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And then I went and talked to him like, what was that? Like, I didn't, like, I was like blown away. Like, I didn't know what happened,
Damn, that boy was fast.
Like, yeah. Like, I'm like, when the smoke cleared, I'm just like parked in the middle of the track by myself, trying to like gather my senses.
Just doing donuts, trying to figure out where to go.
Yeah. I'm like in my, my Pro-Am car on like, just like normal Kenda KR20As and being like, what was that? There was a spaceship out here or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. I mean, I've talked about like there's a tire in Europe called the Extremes, which are like, I can literally...
Is that the retread tire?
I think so, yeah. But like, I can literally dig my nail in. Like,
yeah.
And they hold. I mean, that's the other one that I'm waiting for is like, I think they've done a pretty good proof of concept as a retread. Like, I do think at some point we will end up running retreads.
I don't want to, but it's like,
if we can
at
build
one
a
point,
reliable
are we going to
one,
get like,
right?
Have the whole environmentally friendly conversation?
So
I'm not going to.
I think we are lucky that certain government organizations have not found us. That is, I will leave it at that because I don't want to invite it. But
yeah.
As I cough up a lung from inhaling smoke for 10 years. Yeah.
There's a thing. Yeah. There's that conversation will have to happen at some point.
It will. It will have to happen.
I hope it does. There's a reason we are the last of our kind for, home. Got it. We're good. For, homegrown, home-built motorsports on a professional level.
I encounter the comments all the time, like about electric stuff and like hybrid stuff. And the moment that there is a significant advantage to running that system, everybody will change over, whether you like it or not.
Right.
Think of the original turbo era in F1. Guys were like, turbos are silly, they're stupid. And then next thing you know, guys are running away. And then they banned them. Rotaries had their own thing for a while too. And I think Le Mans, there was a big thing with them. The moment any technology, like whatever that technology is, forget that it's electric, forget that, forget the environmental debate. The moment there is a positive impact in racing, everyone will make the change. That's it.
Yeah, unless we got, we have the Kevin factor here of
Kevin factor.
The Kevin factor.
Why is it that I can taste Dr. Pepper?
I stole so many of his Dr. Peppers at Vegas.
Buddy. Man, rude.
He doesn't watch this, does he?
Not this far in. We're like an hour and 40 in. There's no way. True.
I'm sorry for everything I said, Kevin.
Yeah, love you.
Yeah, I mean, they have to allow it in the sport, at a continued thing. So if it's something that comes in and it kills, a whole bunch of our cars or a whole bunch of the packages or engines that make the sport what it is, then there could be a different conversation there. There's definitely a lot of passion in drifting to like maintain it, right? Just like we're having the talk about tires.
Yeah.
We want to maintain drifting in its current form, with the prestige, the S chassis is going to remain competitive forever, that sort of mentality, which is really cool. But at some point you have to wonder, like, what would happen if we built an FD car out of a modern GT3 car? Yeah. Well, I don't know. We're not allowed to. We're not allowed to. No, I know. Because they don't have, but what would it be like? Would it be fast? Would it kill it? Or would these S chassis with 20 years of development or more than that, would they be the one, would they laugh at the modern, the true modern, the Lamborghini build, So the way I look at all this is like, I went to, do you know what threshing is? This is not something explicit. Threshing is a ability to remove wheat from chaff. So, right. Like literally the majority of the growth that we've had as a society came from threshing. I 2 years ago went to a threshing convention because my brother's new wife, big old school farmers. Mm-hmm. Field full of steam engine tractors, guys racing steam engine tractors. We still watch vintage racing. We have festivals based on vintage racing, but we've moved on. We have F1 as it is now, but we still watch vintage F1 cars race. Yeah. Motorsport has to evolve for it to be continuously at the top of our minds. I love drifting the way it is now because that is what I've grown up in and that is what I've fallen in love with. And change is scary. Change is always scary. But what we have now will never truly disappear as long as there are people that are passionate about it.
it will evolve. It has to evolve. And if it doesn't evolve, it disappears. That's what happens. That group of core people gets smaller and smaller and smaller every year. There's only so many vintage F1 cars, like the torpedo cars. There's only so many of those left, right? Because they evolved. But if we stuck like that, it would have died. So drifting is the same thing. And I know people are going to flame the hell out of me on this, and that's fine. We need to evolve as a sport constantly because we always have. If we still drifted the same way we did 20 years ago, do you think the sport would look the way it is now? No.
Right.
Eventually, something will come along. Is it electric? Is it hydrogen? Is it hybrid? Is it solar power? I don't know. Because if I knew, I'd be just investing the shit out of it right now. But something will come along that will change the motorsport, and it won't happen overnight. It'll be slowly. It'll be one or two guys do it. And next thing you know, Steph Papadakis is an all-electric car that's gapping people the whole way through. And then we have to have that decision of, do we evolve as a sport, or do we race vintage cars for the rest of our lives? That's it.
Right. Yep. That's a good point.
Sorry for my TED Talk.
Oh my gosh. We end up with vintage FD. Oh no.
I would love it. I would absolutely love it.
A whole vintage class.
I would love okay, here's the engine regulation. I still want like a spec series. I would die for a spec series. And people are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I want to see everybody in Z's, whatever, all on the same tire, all the same engine and transmission, because it would be wild, right?
Well, spec is right in the name for Pro Spec.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think that I have to be like super political on this one, but like I do like aspects of narrowing that herd a little bit. Because I think it's important, because if you look at Formula 2, it's similar. There are spec aspects of that. If you look at IndyCar, IndyCar is basically a spec series.
Right.
Right? It's still the pinnacle of that.
It's kind of just F1 that's not. And then, but
even then it's spec, but it's spec to a point. There's only 3 or 4 engine manufacturers. The regulations are so tight that the cars, to an untrained eye, all look the same. To somebody who doesn't watch F1, there's no way you'd be able to tell the difference between a Red Bull and a Ferrari. Right? You and I could.
Yeah, no.
One's got a bathtub side pod, and the other one's
the first year of the new regulations, they look different. But now they've all like slowly migrated to just what the Red Bull is.
Yeah. Well, Mercedes realized that not having side pods was a bad idea, and it only took Lewis Hamilton basically crying for it to happen. So anyways.
They stuck with it for a while.
They tried so hard. And they look cool. They look like little UFOs. It was neat. I like ugly, weird shit. You should know this now.
Yeah, that's true. I wasn't on board. I remember I was like happy like when the first race had come and gone, the first couple weekends, and it was like, all right, the best looking car in the field, which was the Ferrari.
Yeah.
The best looking car in the field is the one that's the fastest.
It was that first rendition with those like huge divots in the side. They were beautiful.
It looked so awesome. And then it happened to be the fastest one. I was like, oh, thank God. The
for a minute
wasn't the fastest one.
Helmut Marko,
if they all looked like that now.
Beer. Yeah.
All right, we're talking about F1 again. We've lost the audience completely.
We've lost so many people. You know what?
They've all signed off. Sorry, everyone. We did our best.
I don't know. I want to be able to blend worlds. I want to be able to like show different motorsports. This show is definitely about drifting, but to think that all we would ever talk about is drifting, the show would die so quick.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of other things.
I want to have fun conversations with people who love drifting. That's it. And it happens to be that I get to talk to you guys, which is like an honor. Like I still as you said earlier, I still fanboy all the time. Yeah. Almost every episode.
Yeah. Yeah. How can you not?
Yeah.
Everyone in FD is like legendary.
Yeah.
I mean, probably to you and me at least.
I mean, I still think
to a lot of people, to millions of people.
You, yeah, for sure. You still are to me. I mean, dude, you're like the giant slayer. You took down James Dean in St. Louis. Like that'll live forever.
It's gonna go on my gravestone.
It should. It'll be like Mosport took down James Dean in rookie year.
Yes.
And I mean, we didn't talk about it, rookie of the year. So
yeah, that was cool. I got my little plaque.
I
was stoked about it.
Yeah.
Me and Higa had our year battle. The battle that only him and I knew about.
Of course.
Can we talk about that? No one knew I was a rookie the whole year.
So, Okay.
Up until halfway through round 8.
No, I was so your R was on the sheet for the majority of the year. And for some reason, like during an update, it wasn't?
No. On the website, it never was the whole year.
I did not.
And I was going to say something, but it was more fun to not. Well, and just wait to see how long you guys took to figure it out.
Made for a pretty crazy live stream moment. I was there, dude. I was announcing with Jared when that was going on. I'm like, huh.
Yes.
But like,
I wasn't going to say anything.
No, it's fine. The comments did. Made for great TV.
Oh, was that where it came from?
Buddy. Oh, did it ever. Yeah.
Because I think it was Higa went out for his qualifying run. And then you guys announced him as Rookie of the Year.
And you're like.
And I'm just sitting there like, hey, it's going to be real funny when they figure it out. But but neither of us were at that point. At that point, it was up in the air.
Yeah. So, because if he would have won a top 32, it would have come down to qualifying points and then, or no, most recent win.
He would have had to beaten me, I think, by 2.
Okay.
I think if I got knocked out in 32, I thought he had to make it to 8 because I beat him 2 more times since then. I don't know. It was pretty close. But yeah, got it done. You guys figured it out eventually, so there we go. That's okay. Well, if you remember when I started FD, they didn't know what my name was. So that's how you know you're not into drifting yet.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, because Bobby Thorne is a way better race team name.
I just showed up at Orlando, and they were literally like, who? I remember when I went to order my tires, and they're like, you're not even on the list. Like, we can't sell you tires. I was like, I am. I swear I have an email saying I can come run FD. And then I show up and there's no pit space for me. And they're like, oh, well, you can go over here. And I was like, I really hope they have my door card, But luckily, like me and Cassie had talked. So she had that all sorted out. We were good. We were good. And to their defense, I didn't have a lot of communication and with anyone from FD because I didn't know anyone from FD.
Right.
And then I think I did my qualifying run, and they had me in data and on the screen as Robert Thorne. And
that's so perfect.
And I think like Jared must have remembered because he had announced me, I think, from Grid Life. So he must have like remembered it was Thorne.
Yeah.
So he announces me as Thorne, and then I hear someone, I think it was Ryan, Ryan's in the background being like, no, it's Throne. and then they announce it like that for like the rest of the thing. And then Tom O'Gorman called them and like, no, it's definitely Thorne.
I guess they're calling you like the Forgotten Son or something like that. Yeah, we're going to find you a nickname.
I changed my Instagram to Throne for the whole next season just to troll them on it.
Dude, you're like low key one of the funniest guys on Grid too, which is you and I have only chatted a handful of times before this. And I once was like at the top of the hill in Atlanta, you're just standing outside your car. And I was like, do you have a front mount rad? You're like, yep. I'm like, is that a stock gas tank? You're like, no, I didn't even say that. You told me. You're like, and I have a stock gas tank. I was like, huh? And he's like, yeah, see how this goes. I'm like, okay.
Time to send it. Yeah.
We hung out a little bit in Laguna, kind of shot the shit there, but that's it.
Yep.
I mean, this was good. So
yeah, man. For sure.
You might now, I don't know, I'll have to like check the official FD stats if they track these details, but you might have the longest episode now, which I had no intention on going this long, but I'm happy we did.
Yeah. No, there's endless things to talk about. So
yeah, we're going to save it for your next episode when you're champion and they did forget about that.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do some car stuff next time. I've got all kinds of shop projects. Of course, me and Chris run a shop here, and we've got the YouTube channel. We've got tons of crazy One Lap of America stories, which is like race week or drift week, but for road racing. And I've got the Rocket Anti-Lag, S2000 stuff, and there's all kinds of other things to talk about.
Yeah.
Got to build a new car for next year.
Are you?
That'll be fun. Yep.
There's an announcement. You said you had no announcements.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So new car for next year. But it was time, right? I had 3 years on this chassis. And I've learned enough things. I want to make a lot of things just better, make it more of an FD car, right? Because it's like a road racing car that's been converted like 3 times. So, yeah, so I'll be making some videos about that. Feel free to follow along, make a fresh car for next year. And it should be fun. So
sick. No, it's a good channel. I had an absolute pleasure going through it and watching videos and, reading up on your history and stuff. So it was fun, man. It was a good research. Cool. Your personal life is like super locked down though. I found nothing. I got like, I got like you maybe holding a giant bottle of whiskey in college or something. And that's like about it.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. I tried, there's like a photo on your Facebook of like your desk in college. And I tried to like zoom in to figure out what meds you were taking. And like that,
sick.
That was it.
That's all you got.
Now phones were potatoes back then. I couldn't get anything.
Yeah. Listen, I don't have any secrets, but personal life just sits on the. It's just racing. Yeah,
dude, that's it.
Everything I do is just a means to go racing. I've always told my boss, I'm like, by the way, if I ever stop racing for any reason, I'm quitting the next day. Like this is the only reason I do it is so that I can go play.
That's literally what I learned in doing this research is that there is nothing that you have done or known or tried that didn't somehow try to forward you into racing since the time you're about 8.
Yep. Pretty much.
I don't know what happened before that, but something caught you and you've just been behind the wheel ever since.
Yeah, that was as early as they'd let me. But
that's
other than that, I'm sure it would have been sooner.
Sick. Dude, well, I really appreciate it.
Cool.
For everybody listening at home, if you made it this far, thank you.
Yeah.
Please, I'll link everything down for Robert in the show notes. Go check out the YouTube channel, subscribe. You're only sitting at like 3,000 views or 3,000 subs. So we need to bump those numbers up.
I know. Tiny numbers.
That's all good.
Do my best.
Sick.
All right, man. Thanks for having me. Later.